So after the general senses, we're going to get into the more specific senses, starting off with the sense of taste and smell. Now the sense of taste and smell is going to be primarily controlled by chemoreceptors. Chemoreceptors are going to be divided into two types, those that respond to distant stimuli and those that respond to direct stimuli. So for example, olfactory cells act from a distance, taste cells and pH receptors act directly. So there you go. But we're going to break down our sense of taste first. So we use our taste buds as chemical receptors for taste. Now the taste cells have taste hairs that project into a pore at the tip of the taste bud. And you'll see that on our next slide. It's a little bit, I don't know, the tongue freaks me out just a little bit, especially when you get down to the microscopic anatomy of it. But the taste cells have taste hairs that project into a pore at the tip of the taste bud. And those taste hairs have receptors for chemicals that are found in food. So when those food molecules are dissolved in saliva, they enter into your pore and stimulate your taste hairs. So although they are not neurons, the taste cells can generate electrical signals that are then sent to sensory neurons that are wrapped around them. And I'll show you that in just a moment. It's really very, very interesting, the way that our taste receptors work. So there are about 10,000, mostly, so inside your mouth there are going to be about 10,000 of them, taste buds that are located mostly on your tongue, but there are some on the inner surface of your mouth. So your taste buds are responsible for five basic tastes. Really, that's all your taste buds can do, is these 5 tastes: sweet, salty, sour, bitter. Now, the interesting thing about bitter is that in nature, it's frequently associated with poison, and thus it's a pretty unpleasant taste. Now, there are, individuals out there who like, I like strong, dark coffee. Some people say they like bitter coffee. There are, generally speaking, bitter is not a flavor that most people enjoy. Some people really have sweet tongues. Some people are, have a sweet tooth. Some people really like sweets. Some people really like sour. Sour is a very, kind of interesting sensation. Salty, umami. All of these are can be very enjoyable flavors within reason, but very few people truly naturally just enjoy bitter, because bitter is, from an evolutionary perspective, bitter reminds us of poisonous foods or foods that have maybe gone bad, things that have turned that you're not supposed to consume tend to be very bitter. So it tends to be a very unpleasant taste. That's a way to keep you alive, let you know your food is not quite safe to eat. And then finally, umami. Umami is that sort of savory, rich, meaty flavor. So here, like I said, are the taste buds. So here is the overall tongue. The tongue is covered in taste buds. These are our taste buds. But if you go down and you look at the microscopic structure, here we have our taste cells, those little taste hairs, those microvilli that come off. So this taste pore is going to be, this pore is found on the surface of your tongue. Saliva mixes with those chemicals found in your food, and it washes down into the pore. It stimulates these microvilli. These microvilli generate an electrical impulse. That impulse is going to stimulate these sensory nerves. So the taste chemicals do not ever touch the nerves. The taste chemicals touch the microvilli. Those start an electrical impulse that are going to stimulate the nerves, carry that information to your brain. So when those, like I said, when those molecules bind to the receptor proteins on the microvilli, the nerve signals are sent to the gustatory cortex in the parietal lobe of your brain, where it can be interpreted as a particular taste. So that's our sense of taste. The sense of smell is going to be much more complex. About 80% of what you think of as flavor in food is really just detected by our sense of smell. Like I said, your tongue is pretty simple in terms of its taste record. It really only has those 5 tastes: sweet, salty, bitter, umami, sour. Those are our senses. Everything else that comes from food is really flavor, and that's really going to be detected by our olfaction, our sense of smell. This is why you can't really taste well with a stuffed up nose. This is why one of those symptoms of COVID is food tasting off. It's an indicator early on that there is a blockage in your sinuses, that there is fluid building up in your sinus passageways that is preventing you from tasting things properly. It's preventing you from really smelling things properly. So olfactory receptors, olfactory cells, these are going to be found in olfactory epithelia in the roof of your nasal cavity. These are going to have modified neurons that are going to be responsible for detecting those different chemicals. Each olfactory cilia bears receptor proteins for odor molecules that are going to be responsible for detecting those tastes. Now, this is going to be sent, all that information is again going to be sent to the brain, which is responsible for interpreting smell, but it's also going to connect smell to emotions and memory. This is why, I don't know, right now there's such a huge fad out there for the diffusion of essential oils. It's because smells can bring about an emotional response. That's why you can buy essential oils that promote relaxation, that reduce stress, that help you sleep, that make you feel more alert, alive, and energetic. It's because smells are so closely linked to emotions and memory that there's such a market for this out there. I'm not saying that it's quackery or that it's just a trend or a fad or anything, but there's a reason why. There's a reason why certain smells can promote awakefulness, can promote drowsiness, can promote restfulness and peace and tranquility. It's because of their association to memory and emotions. All right, so here's going to be sort of a breakdown of that sense of smell and those olfactory receptors. So each olfactory cell has only one of 1,000 different types of receptor proteins. So each olfactory cell is going to be responsible for detecting a specific chemical, a specific odor. Nerve fibers from similar olfactory cells lead to the same neurons in the olfactory bulb, which helps you recognize those senses. So here we have our different olfactory cells, we have our different olfactory receptors, and they're going to pass that information on to the olfactory bulb, which is then going to send that information to the brain. So odor contains many different odor molecules, which activate a characteristic combination of receptor proteins. Each thing that you're smelling is going to be really complex. It's going to contain lots and lots of different chemicals, so you can stimulate lots of different olfactory cells at a single time. Now, the olfactory cortex is going to be located in the temporal lobe of your brain. Now, those olfactory bulbs have direct connections with the limbic system. Do you remember what our limbic system is responsible for? We learned about this in our previous chapter. Yes, our limbic system is going to be the center for emotion and memory. Our olfactory cortex is going to connect directly to that limbic system, which is why smell, olfaction, smells more than anything else can really trigger memories, can trigger memories that maybe you had long forgotten about. The number of olfactory cells is going to decline with age, so it is potential to slowly lose your sense of smell over time. You may notice that sense of taste, food may not taste the way it used to. Over time, you can start to lose the number of your olfactory cells. All right, so here is just going to be a breakdown of what I just said. The olfactory cortex is located in the temporal lobe. Olfactory bulbs have direct connections to the limbic system, which is the center for emotions and memory, and the number of those olfactory cells is going to decline with your age. All right, and that's it for our senses of taste and smell. You should be able to identify the structures of the tongue and nose that are involved in the sense of taste and smell, and compare and contrast the function of the chemoreceptors on the tongue and the nose. You should know sort of the differences between our taste receptors and our olfaction receptors. Know the difference between taste and flavor. And then just very briefly summarize the pathway of sensory information regarding taste and smell from the receptors to the brain. All right, and that's going to be it for this section. Please let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns.